partnerships in all of our areas, hematology, oncology, inflammatory disease, immune diseases, and continue to look at creative approaches. Approaches that keep the partners' aspirations in mind, working closely with our partnerships in the early days of the structuring of these collaborations, and involving the partners based on their operational expertise and where they want to contribute, whether it's in conducting the clinical trials, manufacturing the clinical supplies, seeking regulatory approval, sharing those resources that each of us have so that we create the most meaningful and ultimately the most successful partnership, not only for both companies, but ultimately for the patients that we're all serving. And funding for success, providing the funds to those companies that we partner with to ensure that we can generate the data that ultimately will tell us whether those compounds are going to be successful or not, and as they are, continuing to fund those partnerships all the way through to regulatory approvals and commercialization. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions about Celgene, about our view of the industry, and again, I thank you very much, and we look forward to being part of the community. Thank you. Yep, so I think Abraxis is probably one of the best models, and certainly all of that information is fully public now. So with Abraxis, Abraxane is a very important molecule doing extremely well in serving patients with metastatic breast cancer who didn't have many other options, and is generating in the U.S. over $300 million in sales. We believe with our commercial infrastructure and our medical affairs group, we're going to be able to communicate the benefits of Abraxane even to a more wider audience than Abraxis was able to, and generate increasing revenues of Abraxane just in that particular indication. But Abraxis was also developing Abraxane in a number of other solid tumors, most meaningfully non-small cell lung cancer and pancreatic cancer. And they believed, and we certainly shared their optimism, that the drug was going to have a very meaningful impact in those diseases, from progression-free survival and ultimately overall survival. But how to value the success in those areas? Do we wait to acquire the company until we see the definitive data in non-small cell lung cancer or pancreatic cancer? Or is there a way to share the risk? And so for those areas, we came up with contingent value rights, where we will pay the Abraxis shareholders of record at the acquisition various amounts of money in the hundreds of millions of dollars as we achieve regulatory approvals based on certain endpoints in non-small cell lung cancer and pancreatic cancer. And as always with all companies who are aspiring to greatness, and Abraxis was certainly on that path, there are visions of the revenue that can be generated from your product. And so how do you value the future revenues? Will Abraxane be a $5 or $10 billion product, or will it be a $1 or $2 billion product? And again, we built that into a contingent value right, where the Abraxis shareholders will receive various cash payments and even a royalty on sales as various sales thresholds are achieved over time. So it was, we believe, a win-win for the Abraxis shareholders, for Celgene, and ultimately for patients, because we were able to acquire a tremendous therapeutic molecule and a platform of the technology using albumin for these nanoparticles, and we're willing and very able to share in the future upside from that technology with the shareholders, rather than trying to determine the value up front. So that, to us, is really the paradigm for how we can share the risk and the reward going forward. So what it took for us was to show that, that we could achieve our aspirations, and we really needed to execute over a number of years and demonstrate with thalidomide that it did have commercial potential, and that we could discover and develop, and most importantly develop and get regulatory approval for new molecules. So when I started at Celgene back in 2004, thalidomide had very modest sales in the US, and it was the need over a couple of years to show that we could successfully commercialize this molecule in multiple myeloma in the hematology space, and that our commercial force in the US had the relationships and had the skill to commercialize our own product and somebody else's. But it was also even more important to show that we could develop a molecule from scratch and get regulatory approval. So once we achieved regulatory approval for Revlimid, the analog of thalidomide, initially in myelodysplastic syndrome and then in multiple myeloma in the US, we could go to potential partners and say, we could do it. We discovered this molecule, we moved it through all the development, we got regulatory approval, and now we're putting it in our commercial infrastructure. So we needed to demonstrate to the world at large that we had the ability to execute and achieve what we said we were going to do. From a smaller company perspective, and having been in smaller companies, it really is about longer-term relationships and patience and perseverance. As I said, I most recently came from a startup, running a startup in the Bay Area, and my senior team, who were all great functional experts, were so anxious to get a deal done in a 3-month period, and it's trying to explain to them that we need to build these relationships over time, that all those deals that were done at Celgene took years. So I'd say it's really having that long-term view, and I know that has to be balanced with the financing and where do you get the money to be able to have the luxury of a long-term view, but it really is about relationships. All of these companies, as I said, Pharmion, Gloucester, Abraxas, we've known these folks for years, they've known us, and it was just finding the right time for the acquisition. And if you look around the industry, you see that all over if you look behind the history of those deals. So it's just persevering and continuing those relationships based on data. There's no reason not to go back to those companies that you have a relationship with once you have some meaningful data to share with them. And it may not happen then, but it's continuing to progress the relationship and the potential deal.